Notice what's the email about? What's the problem? It's complaints from members because when you belong to a tennis club or any kind of club, the people who belong to the club are called members. So we've got complaints from members. All right, so it says, Dear April, in yesterday's tea gathering, several members expressed their dissatisfaction towards our service. It's a pity that I left early for another meeting and therefore did not know the details of their complaints. Would you please talk to those members and let me know the main problems? You may find out their names and contacts with my secretary. If possible, please also suggest some solutions. All right, now, really, you don't need to worry too much about this. This email isn't that helpful. I will have to say the newer practice tests, they're a little more updated than this one. Basically know that members express dissatisfaction towards the service and that you need to somehow fix these problems. And let me back up just one more time and let me tell you that if I did send this document to you, and if you look at the top here, it says March 2020 suggested response for Wan Chai Tennis Club. So that is the document I sent you. So if you want to, go back and look at this, that's the name of the document. All right, so here's the major problems. Okay, so these are new. This is a new paper. So remember, we've got the problems on this side, and then we've got the solutions on this side. Okay, so and remember, the problem is the top piece of information, and then the next piece of information, this is more information about the problem. All right, so again, this is the problem, and then more information about the problem. Problem, more information about the problem, okay? And then over here, we have the solutions, okay? And remember, with the solutions, now you will notice it's not anywhere on this test, but remember, you have to add the advantages. You have to add your own idea, okay? Don't forget that. You're going to have to add your own idea because the advantages aren't on the test or the assessment. So remember, 2 of the solutions are special, or 2 of the suggestions. Sometimes you'll hear the word suggestion, sometimes you'll hear the word solution. They're the same thing. Like, so for this one is special, if you remember, because it's got the question mark and it's got the forward slash, okay? Why is that special? There are 2 solutions. We have solution 1, and after you say solution 1, you need to say the advantage and the disadvantage of solution 1. Then you're going to talk about solution 2. When you start talking about solution 2, you're going to use the word alternatively, and then you're going to talk about solution 2 and give the advantage and disadvantage of solution 2. Okay, so and then, no, not that one. Sorry, students, I switched over to my document, so I have to put this one up again. Okay, and then, so like I just said, after you say alternatively and talk about the solution 2, you say the advantage and disadvantage. And then remember, this one is also special because you'll notice they don't give you any kind of solution or suggestion. So you're going to have to think of your own solution and then again, give the advantage of it. So remember, you have to give an advantage here, give an advantage here, give an advantage here. When you see this one with the question mark and the forward slash, you have to give the advantage and the disadvantage. So let's go through them because I'm going to say all these, and then because afterwards I've given you a sample answer, so that way you can see how all these ideas are related. So the first problem 1, is inadequate parking spaces. And so the why, there's a long queue, there's a long line, okay? And then what's the possible solution? Spaces open at a car park nearby, okay? Next one, tennis coaches, they're unprofessional. Now here we have EG. So when you see EG on the test like this, if you see it, you know EG means for example, so that you know that you can use the words for example. So that means they're often late and impatient with learners. How can we fix that? The human resource department should have briefings. Briefing is like a meeting to teach people something. So you should have a briefing to coaches on club guidelines. Guidelines is like rules or policies. Problem 3 is there's poor quality of drinks at the clubhouse. More information about the problem is there's a lack of variety and wrong taste. Okay. And then How can we fix this? We have two options. We can provide training to the bartenders, but remember we need to give the advantage and disadvantage, or we can just sell, alternatively, we can just sell canned drinks. But again, you need to give the advantage and disadvantage. All right, problem number 4, annoying condition in changing room. That's the problem. More information about the problem. There's not enough lockers and there's a slippery floor. Slippery floor means usually the floor is wet, and which means it's easy to fall. Usually you like kind of slide, you fall backwards, okay? And here you'll notice there is no solution or suggestion. You would have to add one, okay? All right, so this is, that part is a review. And then here is a sample answer, okay? So let me go back. Not this one. Sorry, students. Here we go. All right, so here's the sample answer, all on one page together. So you've got the assessment and the suggested answer together. All right, so remember in your opening paragraph, we've got 5 different colors. So there's 5 things you need to do in your opening paragraph, and you'll write 4 sentences. First, you need to say thank you. Then you want to say the main problem, which is complaints from members. Where did I find these words? Right here, complaints from members. Remember, that's the subject line from your boss, complaints from members. Now, just so you know, for the assessment, you don't need to write this part. This really is not necessary. If you want to, you can, but you really don't need to. You can start your answer with dear and the person. All right, then, so you say thank you and the main problem. Then you want to say that you've looked into the situation, which means you've looked at the problem. So you can say, I've talked to members concerned to obtain more details. Again, you could just say, I've looked into the situation. Then you should summarize. You should try to summarize the problems, but don't use any adjectives. So it seems that the problems are related to parking spaces, tennis coaches, the quality of drinks at the clubhouse, and the condition in changing rooms. Then say that you have some solutions. So I've come up with some solutions to help improve the services. All right, then you will notice there's the same 4 steps for each one. Now, problem 3 is special, remember, because there's 2 solutions, but you still have the same colors, because notice it's problem. We've got yellow, green, blue, and gray. So problem, more information about the problem, solution, advantage of the solution. Here, problem 2, we've got the same thing. Problem, more information about the problem, the solution or suggestion, the advantage of the solution. And we have it here as well. Problem, more information about the problem in green, the solution in blue, the advantage in gray. But now, remember, because there's 2 solutions, you need to include the disadvantage as well, which I've highlighted in pink. So you do the same thing for solution 2. You give the solution, say the advantage and the disadvantage. Remember, anytime you see the word advantage of solution, like here, or disadvantage, those are ideas you must add. They're not on the paper. Okay, and then same with problem 4, same steps. Say the problem first in your paragraph, then give more information about the problem. Then you want to give the solution. This is quite a long solution, by the way. And then give the advantage of the solution. And remember, the advantage is not on the assessment. You must add it. All right, so I'm going to read kind of quickly. I know you can read, but just so we can go through it a little bit. It is in your inbox, by the way. So first of all, the parking spaces in our club are inadequate. There is often a long queue of cars lining up at the entrance during the peak hours, which wastes our clients' time. Now, all this right here, this is not on the assessment paper or the practice paper. If you look up here, that's not even there. So you can add ideas here too, just to make your problem seem more real, and give more information if you'd like. Okay, so that was all an added idea. So then I suggest we rent parking spaces at the open car park nearby to rectify the problem. Therefore, members will not need to wait for a long time entering our club. So remember, this is the advantage, and it's an added idea. If you look up here, it's nowhere on the assessment paper. All right, next one is problem 2. Regarding the complaints about our tennis coaches, members commented that they were often late for lessons and impatient to learners. These unprofessional behaviors not only upset the learners, but also affect the image of our club. So here's another example of an added idea. This behavior upsets the learners and affects the image of the club. If you look up here at the assessment paper, you don't see that anywhere. So again, This is another way you can give a little bit more information about the problem and, make your answer seem more real, like a real problem and you're trying to fix it. Okay, so now we have the solution. We should ask the Human Resources Department to organize briefings to tennis coaches so that they will understand clearly the club's guidelines and requirements. All right, and then problem 3, remember problem 3 is the special one. It's got 2 solutions, and you must give the advantage and disadvantage. Remember, how do you know it's special? If you look on the assessment or practice paper, when you see that / and the question mark, you know there's 2. So there's 2 solutions, so that's why you know this one's special, and you have to do more. All right, so we have, in addition, members are not satisfied with the quality of drinks as there was a lack of variety. Even worse, sometimes the drinks had the wrong taste. It seems that we need to provide training to bartenders, so that's the first solution, to enhance their skills, and that's the advantage. However, here comes the disadvantage. It takes time to see the results, and our club needs to pay for their training. Okay, now here comes solution 2. You know this is solution 2 because we start with alternatively. Alternatively, we may just sell a variety of canned drinks. Although the cost incurred will be lower as we only need to provide some vending machines, that's the advantage. Here comes the disadvantage. Canned drinks and vending machines do not really fit with our company image. So you're saying that it doesn't look good for the company. All right, so that's problem 3. Again, problem 4, remember you talk about the problem first, say the more information about the problem, give the suggestion or solution, and then give the advantage of the suggestion or solution, which is an added idea. All right, lastly, we need to deal with the annoying condition in the changing rooms. There are not enough lockers and the floor is wet and slippery. This means our members' belongings might not always be safe and there is a high risk that an accident might happen. So again, all this right here, their belongings might not be safe and there's, a high risk of an accident. If you look up here on the paper, there's nothing about that. So again, you can add the ideas, to give more information about the problem, make the problem sound more real or more urgent or more important. All right, so here comes the solution. Remedial action should be taken immediately, such as cleaning the rooms more frequently. If budget allows, it would be best to renovate all the changing rooms in the low season. And then here comes our solution in order to provide a comfortable environment for our members. Okay, that's problem 4. And then it says, remember, one of the problems you must think of your own solution and add your own idea. And remember, you still have to give the advantage. The test does not give you the advantages or disadvantages, and you must add them. And then the closing is super easy. These 2 sentences will work in any situation, so you can just copy them, basically. I hope you will find these suggestions useful. Please let me know if you would like further information or action. Okay? All right, so that's the sample suggested answer. Now, there's many other things you could have said, but that's just one way. And that's the answer that goes with this one. And remember, you need to add the advantages, which means you need to add your own idea. And the other thing is, remember, when you see these with the / and question mark, you need to also include the disadvantage. Only when you see this one. Only when you see the / in this do you need to add the disadvantage. All right, now, the other thing I did on this paper that I sent you last night is here. So what I did was I tried to give you useful phrases from each paragraph. So I broke them into groups. So the first group is phrases or words you can use to talk about the problem. So how to start your sentence, how to start your paragraph. Because remember, the problem is the first thing you're going to talk about. Because if you look right here, problem's the first thing you talk about. More information about the problem is the second thing you talk about, then the solution, then the advantage. So just remember, if you see P1 and P2, what does that stand for? P stands for problem, so P1 is problem 1, P2 is problem 2, and so on. So P3 is problem 3, P4 is problem 4. All right, so how did we start our paragraph when we were talking about problem 1? So we said, first of all, the parking spaces in our club are inadequate. So what could you use if this was the assessment? You could use first of all, then you can say the problem, which is the subject. Then you need a verb, and then you say the adjective, right? Because you'll notice they all come with adjectives, right? Inadequate parking spaces. So parking spaces, this whole thing is the problem, but these are the nouns. And then here's the adjective. Same here. We've got tennis coaches, and here's the adjective, unprofessional. Usually they put the adjective first. Here we have poor quality of drinks at the clubhouse. So you could quality of drinks at the clubhouse, poor is your adjective. Condition in the changing room, and then before it is the adjective. So again, you could do that for all of them. You could say, first of all, conditions in the changing room are annoying. First of all, quality of drinks are poor. So again, you could do this. First of all, problem, which is the subject, verb, and then adjective. All right, for problem 2, this is how they started the paragraph and talked about the problem. Regarding the complaints about our tennis coaches, notice there's a comma and then more to the sentence. So this, you cannot put a full stop here. All right, so you could say regarding the complaints about, and then problem, just say the problem. If you choose to put the adjective with the problem, that's fine. It might affect how you say the rest of the sentence, but you can. And then just remember, after the comma is when you have your subject and verb in your SVO. So that's why there has to be a comma, because there's really no subject verb here. That's why you have the comma and SVO comes afterwards. All right, how did we introduce the problem? Which phrases can you use to introduce the problem? Well, for paragraph 3, they said, this is how they started the paragraph. In addition, members are not satisfied with the quality of drinks. And then I think they continued on with part of the sentence. All right, so you can say, in addition, then you're going to need to say some sort of group of people. For each practice paper or assessment, there might be a different group of people. So for this one, it was members, but maybe for the assessment, maybe it's doctors, maybe it's nurses, maybe it's students, maybe it's the people of Hong Kong. So you're just going to have to say group of people here are not satisfied with, and then say the problem. Notice when we say are not satisfied, you need to use the word with when you use satisfied. Okay. All right. For problem 4, how did they introduce the problem? How did they start the paragraph? Lastly, because remember problem 4 is the last one, so you can say lastly, we need to deal with the. And then after that, you can have the adjective and then the problem. So lastly, we need to deal with the annoying condition in the changing room. So lastly, we need to deal with adjective plus problem. So you could do that with all of them. Like we could do this. Lastly, we need to deal with the inadequate parking spaces. Lastly, we need to deal with the unprofessional tennis coaches. Lastly, we need to deal with poor quality of drinks at clubhouse. So that's a nice way to start your sentence. Okay, so nice and easy, I hope, for you. All right, then next, after, remember, let me just go back up here, sorry. Remember, after, so we've talked about introducing the problem. So after you say the problem, now you need to talk about and give more let me start over, sorry. Well, you need to give more information, more details about the problem. So how did we do that in all of these paragraphs? Well, I put them here for you. So that's what we're focusing on now, more information about the problem. So for problem 1, they said there is often a long queue of cars lining up at the entrance during peak hours, which waste our clients' time. So this one's really easy. You could say there is, and then give more information about the problem. Now, please note, there is might not always work, so you just need to be careful when you use it. You're going to have to choose, because it kind of depends on the information that they put here in the brackets. Like, depending on what they put here, like I don't think there is would work with often late. There is often late, impatient to learners, that wouldn't work. So you just have to be careful. You could say this, there is a lack of variety and wrong taste. Now, there is works here. And there is does work here too. There is not enough lockers. But sometimes you can't use there is, such as right here. So be careful. All right, next. Again, we're focusing on giving more information about the problem. So for problem 2, it said members commented that they were often late for lessons and impatient to learners. So remember, this is a continuing of the sentence. So that means the problem and more information about the problem is in the same sentence together. So again, you would start off by saying the group of people that complained commented that, and then because you have a that clause, you're going to need a subject and a verb of the that clause. So commented that, you've got your subject, verb, and then more information or more details about the problem. Okay. All right, what about paragraph 3? How did we give more information about the problem? They used as there was a lack of variety. So it says as, subject, verb, more information. So please note, as might not always work, so you'll need to choose when you can use it. And I say this because as is a cause and effect word. It means it gives the cause, it could possibly give the reason for something, or it could give the effect, the result of something. And these kind of words like because, since, as, in order to, sometimes can really mess students up and they might make a mistake. So that's why I'm saying that. You might be careful about that. We're actually going to talk about that in the rest of today's lesson. So we'll talk more, but be careful of those. And then for problem 4, the way they introduced more details or more information about the problem, it said there are not enough lockers and the floor is wet and slippery. So again, there are, and then you can say more information about the problem. And then again, I said, please note, might not always work, so you need to be careful when you use it. And there are is kind of similar to there is, except I'm wondering why there is often long queues. A long queue. So a long queue is 1. That's why we used is. Here, not enough lockers. Lockers ends with an S. That's why we chose the word are here. All right, so remember, in your paragraph, you need to say the problem first, then more information about the problem. Then you're going to say the solution. So I've already given you some different ways that you can introduce the problem and start your paragraph. Then I've given you some different sentence patterns to talk about the reason or more details or more information. Now we're going to talk about phrases you can use to introduce the solution. So for problem 1, in the paragraph it says, I suggest we rent parking spaces at the open car park nearby to rectify the problem. So what you can use is I suggest we, and then you need a verb plus the suggestion or the solution. Now the verb is part of the solution, but I just want to point out to you that there is a verb here. Okay, so that's what you can do for this one. Next one, for problem 2, the solution is we should ask the Human Resources Department to organize briefings to tennis coaches. So now we have the words we should. Then you're going to have a verb with no ing, no ed, no s. Why? Because you've got the word should in front of your verb. So that's why you can't have ing, ed, or s. And then again, the rest of the suggestion or the solution. Okay, so here we have I suggest, we plus verb and the suggestion. Here we have we should, verb plus suggestion. All right, and then remember for problem 3, there's 2 solutions. There's solution 1 and there's solution 2. So for solution 1, it says, it seems that we need to provide training to bartenders. So you could start your solution with, it seems that we need to, verb, again, no ing, no ed, no s. Why? Now it's because you have to in front of the verb, so that's infinitive. Here you have should. When you have should, will, can, might, may, you cannot have ing, ed, or s after the verb. Now you cannot have ing, ed, or s after the verb because of to, because that's infinitive. But then again, after you have to in the verb, then you include the solution. Okay. Now the verb is part of the solution, but I just want to point out that you will need a verb here. All right, that was solution 1. For solution 2 of problem 3, remember you're going to start off with the word alternatively. Alternatively, comma, we may just sell a variety of canned drinks. So again, you would say alternatively, comma, we may, verb, no ing, no ed, no s. Why? Because you have the word may. And then give the solution. Now, just like remember this one here, should, verb, no ing, no ed, no s. Here you have may, verb, no ing, no ed, no s. Because should and may are modal verbs. And they have to have a verb after them, but the verb cannot have ing, ed, or s. All right, and then for problem 4, there's really no sentence pattern for the solution. Let's look at it really quickly and see what they did. Okay. Remedial actions should be taken. Now you could do this. You could say something and then say should be and then a verb, but I think this is very specific and not often used and might not work in a lot of situations. So I would be careful of doing something like this. You could possibly, but it's just not as often used. And again, remedial actions, this is a word they added. It's nowhere up here on the assessment paper. Oh, well, that's because the whole suggestion is added. I would just be a little careful of those, though. Okay, because you've got plenty of other options. You'll notice in the other papers, the other practice papers I've sent you, I've done the same thing. I've made a little part of the document where it says all the useful phrases with the different problems and more, and then giving more phrases for the reason and more phrases for the solution. So you've got tons to choose from. All right, now remember remember, you need to start your paragraph with the problem, then you want to give more information about the problem, then you need to say the solution, and now it's time to add your own idea and give the advantage of the solution or suggestion. So now we're going to talk about those sentences. So for problem 1, it was, therefore, members will not need to wait for a long time entering our club. So you can start with therefore, then you need the subject, which will it might be the people, we don't know, but you'll need a subject, then you need a verb, and then you're going to need infinitive, and then more information. So this is kind of a lot. So I think you understand the subject part. So verb is will, for here it's will not, it's a negative, but maybe it will be will need, can need, something, we don't know. But then you also follow it with an infinitive, which is right here, to wait. So if you don't know what an infinitive is, I did send you early in February, I sent you a document about grammar terms, but I put it in here just in case. So infinitive means you have to plus a verb, and the verb cannot have ing or s or d, or ed, I should say, sorry. So that's infinitive, to plus a bare verb, okay? So we have the subject, the verb, the infinitive, and then more information. All right, then for problem 2, the solution, or the advantage of the solution was so that they will understand clearly the club's guidelines and requirements. So you can use the word so that, and because remember when you have a that clause, the that clause requires a subject and a verb, and then you're just going to follow with more information. All right, remember that paragraph 3 is special because you have 2 solutions. Now, it's not always paragraph 3 that will be special. Let me remind you of that. It's not always problem 3 that's going to have, I think I was saying paragraph, students, I'm sorry. It's not always problem 3 that will have the forward slash and the question mark. You might see the forward slash and the question mark here, you might see it here, or you might see it down here. I will say this, most of the time they do put the forward slash and the question mark on problem 3, but it can move, just to let you know. They might move it. All right, so now we have to give the advantages, and we've got the 2 solutions. So it says to enhance their skills. So again, we have to plus verb, more information. So to is the main word you can use here, but again, if you do use to, you need a verb with no ing, no ed, no s, because this is the infinitive. So remember, just like I explained up here, it's the infinitive, okay? So we've got it right here. For problem 3, solution 2, it says, although the cost incurred will be lower as we only need to provide some vending machines, comma, blah, blah, blah. Although is tricky because you're going to give the advantage and the disadvantage in the same sentence. So here's the advantage, all of this right here. And that means after this comma, all of this is going to be the disadvantage. But they started with the advantage. So we've got although, subject, verb, more information. So I've highlighted, you can see the different parts. Then for problem 4, the advantage of the solution is in order to provide a comfortable environment for our members. So they use the word in order to, and again, you need a verb with no ing, no ed, no s, because you have to in front of it, and then more information. All right, then next, for the disadvantage, because remember, when you see the forward slash and the question mark, you're going to need to give the disadvantage. Okay, so for problem 3, solution 1, they said, however, it takes some time to see results and our club needs to pay for their training. So you can start off with however, and then basically SVO, English sentence, right? Subject, verb, and then more information. For problem 3 solution, remember we talked about although right here. This is the beginning of the sentence, and we first talked about the advantage. And then after the comma comes the disadvantage. So here's that part. So here is the advantage, and then after the comma comes the disadvantage, which is canned drinks and vending machines don't really fit with our company image. So again, it's basically just subject, verb, more information. Okay? All right, so that's a lot in just 37 minutes, I know. So basically, I used this for a couple of things, okay? I wanted to review with you what we talked about last week, the basic format of the assessment. Remember, you've got your basic information up here, email from the boss, and you can use this to help you write the opening paragraph. Complaints from members. I'll point it out to you right here. Complaints from members. Okay, then right here's the big stuff. This is what you're really going to use. Remember, this one is special right here because you have to add a solution and the advantage. This one is special because you have two solutions. You have to talk about the advantage and disadvantage and use the word alternatively. And remember, all of them have to have an advantage, which you have to add your idea. Then I showed you the answer. Over here, I'm telling you the different required parts that you need to discuss. And then over here, I've highlighted them for you so you can see examples of the sentences. We've even talked about how there's some different ideas that you can add just to make the problem seem more real, more lifelike. Okay, we did it here as well. Okay, and then we went over all the different phrases. Oh, and then, of course, the closing paragraph. Oh, and one thing I didn't say. When you end your answer, you just need to write regards and the person's name, whoever you are in this situation. So in this situation, you're April. So let me go back up to the practice paper right here where it says, Dear April, regards Linda. So you're April and you're writing to Linda. So that's why you start the answer off with Dear Linda. Remember, you don't need to worry about this. And then you're going to write regards April. Okay, then we talked about all the different kinds of phrases. Now, there's many phrases, students, but in this sample answer, these are the phrases that were used to introduce the problem and start the paragraphs. These were some phrases used to give more information or details about the problem. These were phrases used to give the solutions. These were phrases used to introduce the advantage, remember, which is your added idea. And then here were the phrases used to give the disadvantage. All right, so that's kind of a review. We got to go over the answer. You can kind of understand the answer more, I hope, and then see some of the phrases that you can use. All right, so now we're going to get into Unit 7. And remember I said be careful with the word as, because as is a cause and effect word. So that's what we're going to focus on in Unit 7. So I'm going to actually talk about cause and effect. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Now, first up here, I have the word succinct. So remember when some students are worried about, oh, do I have to write 250 to 300 words? Don't worry about that. You just need to worry about being succinct. Make sure you do not include unnecessary words and you're fine. All right, so we're going to talk about cause and effect. So let's look up the word cause. Okay, so that's the reason why something happened, especially something bad. I disagree with that, but it is the reason why something happens. So we've got the word cause here. Okay, so we're going to talk about cause. Here's the word cause, okay? And we're also going to talk about effect. All right, so effect is the result. So cause is the reason, effect is the result. So the result of a particular influence. Let's see if there's another one. No, this is the best one. Okay, so effect, the result, basically. All right, now, and some of you may already know this, so if you're thinking, I know this, well, sorry, but some students might not. All right, so let's go back, and now I'm going to go to Unit 7. I sent Unit 7, I want to say 2 weeks ago, I think, but I sent it again, I believe, last night because I added page numbers. Because when they sent it to the teachers, they didn't add page numbers. And I think it's helpful to have page numbers because then when you're studying, and I tell you what page to find something on. I think that's helpful. All right, so we've got EGWC Unit 7, and at the top, this is the name of the document, EGWC Unit 7. I have SS, that just means students, and I've added page numbers. All right, so we're going to talk about cause and effect. That's the main thing here in Unit 7, and we are on page 3. Okay, so I added this, and this should be on the document that I sent you, but when it was sent to the teachers, this was not here, but I added that to help you understand. So we're talking again about cause and effect. And we said that cause is like the reason and the effect is the result. The way I think of it is cause is like event number 1 and effect is event number 2. So the cause has to happen first because it's event number 1 and the effect is the result, so that's event number 2. So if you're having trouble, here's a sample sentence. Because of the typhoon, there was no school. So I hope you guys know typhoon is signal 8. It's the really big, bad weather that we have in Hong Kong, usually around August or September. And in not last year, but the 2 years before, the typhoons have gotten really strong and really bad. All right, so because of the typhoon, so typhoon is event number 1, so it's the cause. It has to happen first. There was no school. So no school is event number 2. That's the effect. Okay? Now, notice what you can do. Even though this is event number 2, you can put it first in your sentence. You can say there was no school because of the typhoon. So we know the typhoon happened first. It's event number 1. It's the cause. It's the reason. But this is the result. There was no school. This is event number 2, the effect. But you can put it first in your sentence. Okay, so now what they want you to do is they want you to have a look at column A and column B. All right, so we've got 6 things here. This is the first half of the sentence. This is part 1 of a sentence, and over here is part 2. So they want you to match them up, okay? So basically, let's do the first one together. If a one-way traffic system is introduced on site, how would you finish that sentence? Would you finish it with A, B, C, D, E, or F? If a one-way traffic system is introduced on site, how would you finish? If you say D, the risk of head-on collisions will be reduced, you are correct. So the answer is D. Okay, so it goes with D. Let me see here. Oh, perfect. See how that works? All right, so that goes with D. Now, I'm not going to put an arrow with each one because then I think it would get a little crazy looking. But you can see what I'm saying here. So what about 2? The breakdown of the lift. What's the rest of the answer? A, B, C, E, or F? What do you think? The breakdown of the lift. Okay, if you said F was caused by overloading, you were correct. Good. Okay, so we've got that one. Now the next one, 3, the construction site will be closed for 2 weeks. How would we finish that sentence? A, B, C, or E? The construction site will be closed for 2 weeks. I would say E because this is the amount of time because this amount of time is needed for the flooding to subside. So we have 2 weeks here and we have amount of time here. So I think that's a good way to figure that. That's the answer. So I'm going to put E here. Oops, not that. All right, we've got E. All right, next one. Metal scaffolding can be used in place of bamboo scaffolding. All right, so is it going to be A, B, or C? Okay, if you say A because it's more durable and has a higher load carrying capacity, you are correct. Okay. Then 5, the department has selected this safety helmet, so our choices are B or C, since it offers better protection if the machinery had been inspected according to schedule. All right, so if you said B, that's good, you're correct. Okay, which means the last one, the crane accident would not have occurred, must be C, if the machinery had been inspected according to schedule. All right. Nope. All right, so those are the answers. So now we've finished the sentences with the 2 parts. So now what they want you to do is you'll notice right here there's this thing called cause and effect. Let me put it here so you can see everything. What they want you to do is for each sentence, they want you to say what is the cause and what's the effect. So for example, number 1, if a one-way traffic system is introduced on site, the risk of head-on collisions will be reduced. All right, so it's number 1. Is the number 1 part, if a one-way traffic system is introduced on site, is that the cause or is that the effect? Okay, Or D, the risk of head-on collision will be reduced. Is that the cause or is that the effect? If you said 1, if a one-way traffic system is introduced on site, that's 1. You are correct. Good, which means D, the second part of the sentence, is the effect. Okay? So when you have if at the beginning of a sentence, you know that's the cause. Okay? So that's that one. Let's do number 2, 2 and F. The breakdown of the lift was caused by overloading. Which part of this is the cause and which part of this is the effect? All right, was caused by overloading is the cause, because we've got the word caused by. So F would go up here, which means 2, the breakdown of the lift was the effect. So we're going to put that there. All right, next, number 3. The construction site will be closed for 2 weeks because this amount of time is needed for the flooding to subside. All right, which one of these is the cause? Which one is the effect? Okay, well, the flooding must have happened first, and we know that because we've got the word because. Because is used with cause words, so we're going to put E up here as the cause, and then we're going to put the construction site will be closed for 2 weeks as the effect. So that's 3 down here. All right, next we have 4. Metal scaffolding can be used in place of bamboo scaffolding because it is more durable and it has a higher load carrying capacity. All right, which is the cause, which is the effect? Which one happens first, which one happens second? All right, because it's more durable, this has to happen first. This has to be durable before we can start using it. So, and you've got the word because, and because is used with the cause to introduce the cause. So we're going to put A here, and we're going to put 5 here. Okay. Did I skip 4? Oh no, that's 4. Sorry, I apologize. All right, so let's move on to 5. All right, the department has selected this safety helmet since it offers better protection. All right, which has to happen first? Which has to happen second? Well, first it needs to offer better protection before you can decide to use it. And we've got the word since, and since you use since to introduce the cause, event number 1. So we're going to put B up here as the cause, which means the department has selected the safety helmet. 5 is the effect. All right, with our last one here, the crane accident would not have occurred if the machinery had been inspected according to schedule. Right? Which one's the cause? Which one's the effect? All right, remember we said that, or I said earlier, if you have a word if, then if is used to introduce the cause. So that means that this one here is the cause because we start with if. Because this should have happened first, but it didn't. So that's why this happened. Okay, so 6 is the effect. Okay, so that's a little introduction into cause and effect. Okay, we've talked about that. Remember, the cause is event number 1. It's the reason. The effect is event number 2. It's the result of the cause. So remember, no school is the effect of the typhoon, and the typhoon is the cause for no school, is the reason why we don't have school. All right, so there's that. Next, we have this here. It says, you are Paul Jones, Assistant Architect at B&T Architects. Read the email you received from a colleague below. Okay, so it says, Dear Paul, I'm trying to convince our architects to increase the use of bamboo in their designs. I've told them that bamboo is more environmentally friendly and cost effective, but they need more supporting information. I would be grateful if you could research the benefits of building with bamboo so I can have the information ready for further discussion with them. Thanks for your assistance. Regards, Donald. All right, now here's your reply. So, Dear Donald, you're writing Donald, and you are Paul. Best regards, Paul. Now, here is the sample answer. And they want you to fill in these words where the gaps are. Okay. Now, 2 of them you might be able to put in the same spot. So just be careful. But I'll give you a few minutes to think about that. Oops, let me make it smaller so you can see everything. I'll put this here, and I'll give you a minute or two for you to figure out and think about the answer, okay? Okay, students, so let's check your answers. See, what did you put? What do you think the answers are? All right, so this one's a little bit tricky because some students want to put because up here, which you could, but for the answer that they've provided the teachers, they've put since here. So using bamboo as building material has a number of benefits. Since bamboo is a fast-growing sustainable material, its use will help reduce the carbon footprint of our building projects. Also, bamboo only takes 3 to 6 years to grow. So the answer is so. Oops, where is it? Sorry, students. So it is more cost-effective than wood, which takes 20 to 60 years to mature. All right, next one. In addition, bamboo is lighter than concrete and steel, but just as strong because it is hollow and cylindrical. So this one's because. Now again, because bamboo is a fast-growing sustainable, since it is hollowed and cylindrical, yes. You could put since here, and you could put the word because up here. They both work, that's fine. Why Ivy chose to put since here and because here, I don't know, but they both work, that's fine. All right, so then after that, number 4, we've got therefore. All right, therefore, it is less dangerous in the event of a storm or earthquake. Furthermore, bamboo is flexible and therefore easy to work with compared with other materials. Now, students, I'd have to say, I don't think they thought about this, but let me find this part right here. Wait 1 second, sorry, students. I don't think that sounds very good, though, because you've got therefore in this sentence and therefore in this sentence. You've got therefore twice in 2 different sentences. Style-wise, that's not really good writing. I don't think they thought about this, but yes, therefore is used correctly, but then they use it here. So style-wise, it just doesn't sound good. So that means the last answer must be the last one, which is for these reasons. Bamboo is an ideal material for our building projects. Okay, so that was just a little fill in the blank there. All right, so that's a little bit of practice with cause and effect words. All right, now, students, this is the really big important part. Here is a list. So we're on page 5 now, okay? Page 5. And here's a list of words you can use to introduce the cause of the effect. So I did highlight these for you, and I did add the word cause and effect. I don't think it's on the paper that they sent, the document they sent to the teachers, but I added it so you can make sure. So in this box here, we've got attribute to, result from, stem from. These are all words that can introduce the cause. And you've got one here. Joe attributed the bridge collapse to, so attributed to, notice they're not next to each other in a sentence. Joe attributed the bridge collapse to some serious design flaws. The bridge collapse resulted from or stemmed from serious design flaws. Okay, so these are words that are used to introduce the cause. Now, you might possibly use these in the assessment, but honestly, students, even in the practice papers, they don't usually use these phrases too often. I'll tell you that. All right. Then, if you want to introduce the effect, you can use bring about, cause, result in, allow, or enable. And enable and allow are special because what they should have done here is done this. Allow and enable also requires to, because you'll see it over here. All right, so serious design flaws have brought about the collapse, have caused the collapse, or have resulted in the collapse. Our adoption of building information modeling software has allowed our engineers to plus verb work more efficiently, or has enabled our engineers to plus verb work more efficiently. So that's why you need to, and then you really need a verb after the to. The reason why I highlighted result from in blue and result in blue is because I think students might mix them up because, you see the word result and you see the word result. So if you're going to introduce the cause, remember the cause is event number 1, the first thing that needs to happen. You're going to write result from. If you are going to introduce the effect, event number 2, the second thing that happened, then it needs to be result in. So it needs to end with IN, okay? All right, so exciting stuff here in Unit 7, talking about cause and effect. All right, more stuff to introduce the cause. And again, honestly, students, bring about and cause, I don't know if you're going to see that too much in sample answers. I would say sometimes you might see result in, you might see allow or enable in the sample answers. So I'm trying just to point out to you some of the words that you'll most often see here. So again, now we're moving on to here. If you want to introduce the cause, remember cause is event number 1. You can say be brought about by or caused by. Now this is passive voice and you know it because it says right here. So we have the bridge was caused by some serious design flaws, or the bridge collapse was brought about by some serious design flaws. Alrighty, so there's that. Now that was focusing on introducing the cause, which is event number 1. Remember, the effect is event number 2, the second thing that happens, the result. So remember we talked about modal verbs? I hope you remember that I said something about modal verbs. So if you're like, what is a modal verb? We've got can, we've got could, may, might, will, would. We've got them here too. Can, could, may, might, will, would. All right, what's the difference between this one and this one? This is a modal verb that's active, and this is a modal verb that is passive. Okay, so in active, you just need the bare infinitive. And we also talked about bare infinitive already today in class. Remember, bare infinitive is just the verb by itself. No ing, no ed, no s. All right, but this is active, so we've got the modal and the bare infinitive. So we can improve modal, bare infinitive, our performance if we allow the new guidelines. If we follow the new guidelines, sorry. The construction of the new bridge may cause some environmental damage. So may cause is our not preposition, modal, and then our bare infinitive. Building a new bridge will ease traffic congestion. Again, so we've got our modal and our bare infinitive. That's active. Now we've got passive, and remember before the assignment I talked about passive a lot. So remember you need some sort of be verb like am, is, are, was, were, be, been then you're going to need past participle, which is a verb that usually ends with ed or en. And there is a video up on Moodle that I made about that. So it is there waiting for you. All right, so owing, and remember we're talking about the effect. So we're introducing the second event, event number 2, the result. So owing to bad weather conditions, the building project may be delayed. That's the result, the effect. With the use of prefabricated components, construction time can be reduced. All right, due to increased risk of collapse, bridges built before 1970 will be repaired to ensure safety. Notice they've used maybe, can, and will. Also, I think for this test, sometimes I see the word could being used and sometimes might as well. Okay? All right, so those are some words to introduce the effect, the result, which is event number 2. And we have a few more on page 6. Okay, so you'll notice here it says, as a result, then plus NP, and I keep putting NP everywhere here. All right, what is NP? NP means noun phrase, and it's a group of words that are acting like a noun, but it can't have a verb. And we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that later today in class when we get there, okay? Wait one second. Okay, so just know NP is a noun phrase. It's a group of words acting like a noun, but it can't have a verb. So these are all words here, all of them, that are used to introduce the cause, okay? So that means event number 1, the reason for something happening. So as a result of, because of, due to, owing to. All right, so, and remember they need a noun phrase after them. So as a result of dropping production costs, so there's the noun phrase, shape memory alloys now have wide applications in the construction, aerospace, and biomedical industries. Now you could flip this sentence around. You could say this first and then say this second, okay? You could say shape memory alloys now have wide applications in construction, aerospace, and biomedical industries as a result of dropping product production cost. Okay, so there you go. Now these next ones, as, because, and since, are also used to introduce the cause, event number 1. But now instead of NP, now you see SVO. So these 3 words, as, because, and since, require subject, verb, object. And remember we talked about this in one of the answers. I told you as is a little bit special. You may or may not be able to use it. It really depends, and this is why, because it can only be used to introduce the cause. So you have to be careful with these. All right, so here we have the construction site is closed because safety infringements is the subject, R is your verb, and then we've got O, more information here, currently being investigated. Okay, so those are those words. And then we have effect. These are words that you can use to introduce event number 2, the effect. We've got words like consequently, as a result, for this reason, therefore, thus, and so. So here we have the production cost of shape memory alloys has dropped significantly, full stop. Now we start a new sentence. Consequently, these alloys now have wide applications in construction, aerospace, and biomedical industries. Most of these words are used to start a new sentence. The only one I would not use is so. I think if you start a sentence with the word so, you can, but it's a little bit too casual. If I was going to use so to introduce the effect or event number 2, I would just keep the cause here, then use the word so, and then write about the effect all in the same sentence. I wouldn't start a new sentence with so because it's a little too casual. All right, but most of these other ones, you usually see them at the beginning of a sentence. Like here, you see them at the beginning and then with a comma and then SVO basically, okay? Now, you might be like, well, why are we learning all this? When can you use these cause and effect words? You have to use them very carefully, remember, because you have to decide, are you talking about the cause? Are you introducing the cause or are you introducing the effect? You can possibly use them to talk about the problem and the more information about the problem. Again, you'll have to think very carefully which one's the cause and which one's the effect. The problem is not always the cause, and more information is the effect. Sometimes the problem is the effect, and sometimes more information is the cause. So you really have to be careful. But you can possibly use these in the first part of your paragraph when you talk about the problem and the more information. When will you could also, though, use the effect. So all these words for the effect here and the effect here and here and here. You can use the effect when you give the advantage of the solution, because you have the solution, and then when you want to give the advantage is the effect will be the result of the solution. So you can use the effect words to introduce the advantage of the solution. Remember, the advantage is something you have to add. It's an added idea. It's not on the assessment paper. All right, now we've got one more little practice with cause and effect, and we're still on page 6. And here there are some mistakes using cause and effect words, and they want you to find them. So it says your colleague has asked you to help proofread and draft her email. Proofread, means just check for mistakes. The draft of her email. She has made some mistakes. Cross out each mistake and write the correct word above it. Use one word only to correct each mistake. Hint, there are 6 mistakes, 1 in each sentence. All right, so there's 6 mistakes, 1 in each sentence. Can you find them? All the mistakes are somehow related to these cause and effect words we've talked about. So can you find them? So I'll give you a minute or two to try to find the mistakes and fix them, and then we'll discuss them. Okay, students, I hope you were able to find the mistakes with no problems. Let's go over the possible things we can fix here. All right, so the first one is thus. The site was without air conditioning for 4 hours yesterday, thus the cooling system broke down. All right, now thus is used to introduce the effect, but the cooling system broke down, which is the cause. So here we could use because or as. Let's see. Okay, so it's not thus. You would want to write because or as. Okay, these are the correct ones. All right, next. The system failure resulted in overheating of the temperature sensors and 2 water chillers. Now remember, resulted in and resulted from, which we talked about up here. Result in is effect, result from is the cause. So here, the system failure resulted in overheating, so it's resulted from. Okay, so the correct answer is from, and I'll highlight that in red for you. Alrighty. All right, next. Our engineers have found that the problem was caused of installation of faulty sensors. Now, this one isn't really a cause-effect problem. It's just a bad choice of words. Was caused of. So it shouldn't be caused of. It should be caused by. Okay? So this is where the mistake is, and the answer should be by. All right, next. Now we have, then some workers were not feeling well due to high indoor temperature. Again, then just sounds a little, not professional enough. So it would be better to have written something like consequently. Okay. Consequently, not then. All right. Now, what about this one? Again, this isn't necessarily a cause or effect issue. It's more of a spelling issue. It's not owed to. What should it be? What should that be? All right. If you look up here, notice it's owing to. Okay, so we've got that. We need to change that to owing to. Oh, I guess I don't need the to. They already gave it to us. So that's what we had to fix there with ing. All right, and the next one, right down here. We hope that these repairs will be completed soon so that the impact of the incident can be minimized. Now again, remember we talked about this up here. It says the modal verb can, could, may, might, will, be. So we're talking about the effect. We need be plus a past participle. What did I say you about a past participle? A past participle usually, it is a verb, but it's usually a verb that ends with ed or en. So we've got delayed, reduced, required. So that's the thing we're talking about here. So it can be, you're going to need minimized. Okay. Or if you want to spell it with an S and B like the UK, great. If you want to spell it with a Z like the US, that's fine too. Okay, but the real important thing here is that you added the D. The D is the big deal there. So that's more grammar than anything. It's not really cause and effect necessarily. All right, so those are a little bit of practice now with cause and effect words. Now remember, like we said, we talked about cause and effect words. And I said that we've done some practice. Remember, cause is event number one. So the cause has to happen first. It's the reason for something. And then event number two is the effect. It's the result. Okay. So you got to be careful when you use them, because when you're using them, you got to understand, are you talking about the cause or the effect? Because that will, influence or affect which words you use in front of them to introduce that event, if it's event number one or event number two. Okay, when can you use them on the assessment paper? This is where it gets tricky. With cause and effect, you might be able to use them with the problem or more information about the problem. But that's the thing. You might be able to use cause words, or you might be able to use effect words when you introduce the problem. You might be able to use cause words or effect words to introduce more information about the problem. Sometimes the problem is the cause, sometimes the problem is the effect. Same with more information about the problem. Sometimes more information about the problem is a cause, sometimes it's the effect. But the easier part for this is when you talk about the advantage of the solution. Remember, the advantage is the idea you have to add. It will always be the effect. You can always use effect words to introduce the advantages of the solutions. And remember, the advantages of the solutions are not on the assessment paper. They are added ideas that you need to add, and that is a requirement of the assessment. Okay, so if you don't add ideas, like the advantage and the disadvantage, your grade will not be very good. So just be careful. All right, so that's cause and effect. Now we're going to go more into ways to introduce the problem. Remember, I started off the class talking about ways to introduce the problem, and I used, I used this paper here. We talked about this paper. I used this to do a review and kind of remind you about the assessment. Then we went over the sample answer, and I talked about all the requirements and like sample paragraphs and sentences. And then we talked about phrases, right, that you can use to introduce the problem, more information about the problem, the solution, the advantage, and the disadvantage. All right, so we're going to focus more now on phrases you can use to introduce the problem and start your paragraph. Okay, so here's some more. And you're kind of see some more. You might see some of these as repeated. Okay. All right, so let's go to that page. And again, I sent this to you last night, this document. Again, if you haven't looked at it yet, that's fine, because we're looking at it in class, and you have it in your you have it in your inbox. So, you know, it's there for you to look at whenever you need to. All right, so this is what it looks like. Okay, so it starts off with body, stating the problem, starting your paragraph. Okay, body, remember the body paragraphs, not the opening paragraph, not the closing paragraphs, but the paragraphs in between the opening and closing. Those are the body. Stating the problem. Stating just means say, so saying the problem. And remember, you always, this is what I should have shown you first. When you start your paragraph, students, you're going to start by talking about the problem. So I should have talked about this first. So if you notice the sample answer I gave you, all of them. So remember, you talk about the problem first, then you give more information about the problem, then you say the solution, then you give the advantage. So I would say 99% of the time you're going to start your paragraph with talking about the problem. Okay, so I'm going to give you more phrases now to do that. So let's go look at that. So more ways to talk about the problem and start your paragraph. All right, first, you can use reported speech and a past tense verb. Okay, so reported speech is when you have something like our members complained that, our members commented that, many customers reflected that. So when you have complained that, commented, reflect that, that's reported speech. That's when you're repeating what someone else said. So if person A told you something and then you go and tell person B, you're reporting speech. You're reporting what person A said, okay? And you need a past tense verb. So you'll notice here's our past tense verb, lacked, was, and was. And the other thing about this, because it is reported speech, you also have a that clause. And a that clause means you have a group of words that starts with the word that, and then it requires a subject and a verb. Okay? All right, and the subject needs to be a noun or a noun phrase. And remember, we talked about this just a minute ago in Unit 7 about noun phrases. Noun phrases are a group of words acting like a noun. And remember, I said you can have no verb in a noun phrase, okay? So again, why? If you're like, why is she talking about this? It's because when you have a that clause, your that clause needs a subject, and the subject needs to be a noun or a noun phrase. So I'm going to give you now more information about a noun phrase. So we're going to go to the bottom of the page here, and we're going to talk a little bit about noun phrases, okay? So a noun phrase right here. A group of words in a sentence that together behave as a noun. All right, there's the Chinese for you. Now remember, I told you no verbs. Remember up here I said it cannot have any verbs in here in the noun phrase. But a noun phrase can have a gerund. What's a gerund? A gerund is a word ending in ing. It's made from a verb, but it's used like a noun. Okay, so be careful. And I'll show you an example. Right here. Our members commented that the scheduling of activities was poor. Scheduling. You might be like, well, wait a minute, that's a verb, but no, it's actually it's a gerund here. It's acting like a noun. That's an example of a gerund. So that is still part of a noun phrase. So again, I'll repeat. A noun phrase can have a gerund. A gerund is a word ending in ing, and it's made from a verb and used like a noun. All right. The other way you can have a verb ing is here. A noun phrase can have a verb ing, which is a present participle, and it comes after the noun and gives more information about the noun. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's an example. I don't see one here. All of these are gerunds. If I see a present participle, I'll let you know. All right. But all right, a noun phrase can have a verb ing, that's a present participle, after the noun and gives more information about the noun. And remember, so you can see a present participle or a gerund in a noun phrase, but remember, they are not verbs here. So that's what I say here next. So there are no verbs in noun phrases, but there can be words that look like verbs, but they are not acting like verbs. Okay? So be careful. Let's go back up here again. So we're talking about reported speech. I told you reported speech is when you hear things like complained that, commented that, reflected that. You need a past tense verb. So here's the verb here. We've got lacked, that's ed, so that's past tense, and was is past tense. And not only in reported speech do you have words like complained or commented or reflected, you need the word that. Okay, so when you have that, you have a that clause, which is a group of words that starts with that, and you have a subject. The subject can be a noun or noun phrase, then the verb, that's the past tense verb, and more information. Okay, and you can see I've color coded it. So here's our subject, here's our verb, and then more information. All right, so here we go. Our members complained that our website lacked focus and organization. Our members commented that the scheduling of activities was poor. Many customers reflected that the content was out of date. Now here we have two subjects, two verbs, and two more informations. So the content was out of date and most of the links were broken. Okay, so that's using reported speech. So you can use this to start your sentence and talk about the problem. Again, you might have to change the word members. You're going to have to change the words to some sort of group of people. Again, students, staff, employees, teachers, doctors, nurses, firefighters, people of Hong Kong, but it'll have to be some kind of people. All right, next one. These are patterns followed by a clause and a past tense verb. So again, you notice we've got the word that. And because we've got that, we've got a that clause, which means you have a group of words that starts with that, and you need a subject and a verb of that clause. And again, you still have the past tense verb, which you can see here and here. Okay, so we received complaints saying that our scheduling of activities was poor. It was found that the scheduling of activities was poor. Okay, so again, different ways you can start your sentence. We received complaints saying that, it was found that. Okay. You could also maybe use, now these I would say you'd probably, sometimes you can use these to start the problem and say the problem, but sometimes you might be able to use them to give more information about the problem too. It just depends. Okay. All right. Now, the next part is patterns followed by a noun phrase. So remember I told you no verb in a noun phrase, and I told you what a noun phrase is. We talked about all of that down here. Okay, so you can say the customers complained about the poor scheduling of activities. We received complaints about the poor scheduling of activities. Negative comments were received concerning the poor scheduling of activities. So this is all the same words here. Our members were dissatisfied with the poor scheduling of activities, or our members were not satisfied with the poor scheduling of activities. All right, so all of these, when you see, and this is why I highlighted them yellow, when you see words like about, you know there's going to be a noun phrase that comes after it. Usually there won't be any verbs. Same with concerning, because concerning pretty much acts like the word about in English, just concerning sounds a little more professional. So again, if you see the word concerning, you know that there's not going to, it has to be a noun phrase, no verbs after. Same with the word with. If you've got with, you're going to have a noun phrase after it. You usually can't have a verb. Okay. Now, the other thing is, I told you that concerning and about are kind of the same word in English. They act the same way. But now we have the word with here. If you're going to say dissatisfied, we're dissatisfied, or you could say we're not satisfied, notice it needs to be followed with the word with. All right, so just be careful of that. Okay. All right, so those are some ways to introduce the new, start your paragraph and talk about the problem. You could possibly use these phrases also to talk about more information about the problem too. All right, so we've got those and we talked about those. Now there's a few more different ways you can say this. So I've got this here. Okay, so now originally, if this was a face-to-face class, these would be on page 43 of your book, but I know that you're at home and you might not have the book with you, and that's totally fine. That's why we sent to you the document called Unit 4, and on Unit 4, page 3, you would see these words here like regarding and concerning. Remember, you probably used some of them in your assignment. So again, if you've got the book at home with you, great, look at page 43. If you don't have the book, please stay at home. You don't need to go to school. Just stay at home and be safe, because you've got these documents and you've got the online classes to help you and the videos I've made. So you can use the document that's called Unit 3 and look on page 4. That's where you find it. So you start your sentence off with regarding, concerning, as for, something like that. Next part of your sentence, you're going to say the problem. Okay. Don't forget you need a comma, After the problem, don't put a full stop because you don't have your subject and verb over here. So that's why you can't have a full stop, because your sentence needs a subject and a verb. These are only noun phrases. That's why you need the comma. Then afterwards, you're going to say the group of people. So here we have members, here we have participants. Then you have reported speech, such as reflected that or commented that. And because remember, you have the word that, you have a that clause. So that's why then you'll, after the word that, you'll have a subject, verb, and more information. And the subject and verb or more information is when you give more information about the problem, the reason, or more details. So let's take this for example. Regarding the poor scheduling of activities, comma, members reflected that they are mostly held on the weekdays. Concerning the unattractive seminar topics, comma, participants commented that they are not related to current situations. All right, so that's another way you can start your paragraph. And what's nice about these, what I think is really nice, is you've introduced the problem and you've introduced more reasons or more information about the problem all in one sentence. Now, I wouldn't recommend writing all of your paragraphs this way, like so each paragraph, because remember there's 4 paragraphs, 4 problems. You want to say regarding da 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 da, members reflected that. Then the next one concerning da da da, participants commented that. And then maybe the next one as far as da 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 is concerned, teachers pointed out that da 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 da. That's a little too repetitive. But if you want to use these a few times in your answer, you can. Now, for those of you whose English might be really difficult for you, then yeah, if you want to use, this for each of the 4 problem paragraphs, that's fine. But please don't use regarding, or concerning. Please use different words. And please don't just say reflected that, or commented that. Please use, different words, okay? Now, words you can use to start your paragraph before saying the problem. So problem 1 is the first problem. So you could start your paragraph with, first of all, regarding the poor scheduling of activities, members reflected that, blah, blah, blah. Or you could say to begin with or to start off with. When you're talking about problem 2 and 3, you could start your paragraph off with in addition, moreover, or furthermore, if you wanted to. You don't have to. And since problem 4 is the last problem, you could start your paragraph off with the words lastly, finally, last but not least. Be careful about last but not least. I think some students have memorized this word incorrectly, and they just say something weird. Sometimes they say last but not last. They'll do something like this. I don't know if they're misspelling it, or maybe they forget the E, or maybe sometimes they do this, last but not. They'll do something like this, last but not. Something like that. They'll get the spelling mixed up. I really think it's more just a spelling problem, so just be careful. It needs to be last but not least. So you could say, lastly, concerning the unattractive seminar topics, participants commented that they are not related to current situations. So you could put these words before you start your sentence for problem 4. All right, so those are just some different little ways you can start, and add a few more words to your problem paragraphs. All right, so that's that. The next thing I want to talk about is right here, adding more ideas. Now, we already talked about this, but we're just going to talk about it again. So in today's class, I started off with the Wan Chai Tennis Club. Remember the unprofessional tennis coaches, and there's no parking spaces. I'll put it back up here so you can see it, so you know what I'm talking about. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's this one. All right, so remember we started off talking about this one. Wan Chai Tennis Club practice, remember? And then we just talked about this today at the beginning. All right, so we're going to look at it a little more. Not all the paragraphs, but some of them. Okay, so let's see here. Here we have, sorry students, I don't know if you can hear me okay. Here we have adding more ideas. So this is from the sample from Wan Chai Tennis Club. There are words that are bolded, underlined, and highlighted. These words and ideas are examples of how you would add extra details to your answer. You don't have to do this, but it might make your answer better. Okay, so these are just examples. This does not mean you have to copy the idea that was added. Okay, this is just to show you that you can add more ideas. For example, like right here, which wastes our client's time. You may not be able to add this particular idea to the assessment it may not work in the situation. So that's why I'm saying you can't really copy them, but I'm just trying to help you understand how you can add more ideas just to make the problem seem more real, um, and make the problem sound more urgent, or like, like it really is a problem. Okay. So here in this one says, because remember they're having to wait in a long queue. The cars are lining up because they can't park their car. And it says, which wastes our client's time. This is not on the assessment paper. This is not on the practice paper. So this is an added idea. That was problem 1. For problem 2, remember this one is about the tennis coaches. And they said they're often late and impatient. So it says these unprofessional behaviors not only upset the learners, but also affect the image of our club. Again, all of this is nowhere on the practice paper, but you're just kind of giving a result, like the bad result of this behavior. So again, this is a way to add an idea. And then with problem 4, okay, now notice I didn't talk about problem 3 because in problem 3 they didn't add any kind of extra idea for you to add. But in problem 4, remember there's annoying conditions in the changing rooms. And remember there's not enough lockers and the floor is wet and slippery. So notice we said this means our members' belongings might not always be safe because there's no lockers, right? And there's a high risk that an accident might happen. There's an accident that might happen because the floor is wet and slippery, so they could fall. So again, this is just an example of a way to add an idea. Again, can you copy this exact idea? Probably not. I mean, I don't know what's on the assessment. I haven't seen it or anything, but if they're not talking about a wet, slippery floor, or if they're not talking about enough lockers, then this idea won't work. So again, these are just examples to show you how you can add more ideas, to make the problem seem more real and more urgent. Okay, like we really need to do something to fix the problem. All right, so that's just some examples of how to add more ideas. And so yeah, let's go on to the next one, the next page. Actually, there is another example in IPE, the very first paper I gave you. I think there is, so we can show you some more examples too here. Let's see. Here, this is the very first one I showed you last week, the practice paper and the sample answer. Like right here, which are not convenient to our members. If you had the practice paper in front of you, you would know that that's not on the a practice paper. So this is an added idea here. Okay, let's see. Do we have another one? Not here. Maybe here. Oh, or like here. Now the writer is giving their opinion. They're saying this is certainly not adequate because there's not enough communication, only through emails. I would be careful of saying something like this. This certainly is not adequate because remember, for this assessment, you're writing your boss, you're writing your supervisor, you're writing your manager. So talking to your boss like this may or may not be a good idea. Okay, so this one is a little bit strong in what you're saying, is what I would say. All right, but again, these are just some examples of how they added a little bit more idea to make the problem sound more urgent and make it sound like a real problem. Okay, so now we're going to go back to this other document I was showing you. And so we've talked about a lot of different things in this document. So let's just review really quickly. First, we talked about all these different ways that you can say the problem. You might be able to use these phrases to also introduce more information about the problem. We talked about a noun phrase, a group of words. It's behaves like a noun. And I said there's no verbs in a noun phrase, but you can have a gerund or a present participle in a noun phrase. So they look like a verb, but they're not acting like a verb. All right, then I gave you a few more ways. I said that these two sentences are really nice. These two sentence patterns are nice to use because now you can not only talk about the problem, but you can also talk about more information about the problem all in one sentence. All right, then we talked about words you can use to start your paragraphs if you want to add these, in front of here. Okay. You talked a little bit about adding more ideas. And now we're going to go back to opening. Now, I know we talked about this last week, about the opening paragraph, okay? So I'm just going to go over this again. There's two possible ways. This is I guess it would be the easier way because you'll notice there's not as many sentences. Okay, there's don't do that. There's 4 different sentences you need to include. Personally, I think this is a little better. But if you want to just write this one, it's okay. Okay, now before I go into the opening paragraph, which I did talk about last week, because I did show you another paper you can use. If you will notice, and I think I showed this to you last week in class with Unit 8, because Unit 8 also talks about the opening paragraph. And it is on, and you do have this, I did send this to you. Where are we? At page 4. Page 4 of Unit 8 talks about the opening paragraph, and they're talking to you. They tell you that there's these 3 steps to use the opening paragraph, and then they give you some sample sentences. This really isn't the whole picture, though. There's 4 things you need to add. So, and quite honestly, I wouldn't use these phrases. In this step 1, function 1 thing, I wouldn't use these. You could say, I've looked into the matter and I've investigated the problem. That you could use. And I would like to provide you with details to fix the problem. Okay. I would like to suggest some solutions. I've come up with some solutions. These are okay. And these 2 are okay. But students, for the assessment, I would not use that. I wouldn't use I've met with somebody. It's too awkward. And some of these, these won't really work. So again, page 4 of document Unit 8, it kind of helps you with the opening paragraph, but it doesn't give you the full picture of what you need to write, and some of the phrases you can't use. So you have this paper here that you can use, okay? Like I said, this one has all 4 sentences. I do think this is the better one, but you could write this as well. Okay, so the first one says, thank you for your email concerning, and you need to say the main problem, which is a noun or noun phrase. Where do you find the main problem? You can use the manager's subject line in his or her email to help you. Then you would say, I have looked into the situation and I would like to report the findings for your consideration. It seems that the major problems are related to. Then you're going to say problem 1. It's a noun or noun phrase, but don't include the adjective. Same thing goes for problem 2, problem 3, and problem 4. It's going to be a noun or noun phrase, but don't say the adjective. Okay, full stop after you say problem 4. Then the last sentence of your opening paragraph would be, I would like to suggest a number of solutions that help rectify the situation. And in every sample answer that I give you, that's the kind of opening paragraph I give you. So if you look at this opening paragraph right here, that's exactly what's happening here. Thank you for your email concerning negative feedback. So that's the big problem. Where do we find the big problem? This is the main problem. You use, the subject line from your boss's email. Okay. Then you want to say you've looked into the situation right here. That's the green part. That's step 2, really. Step 3, summarizing the problems, but don't use any adjectives, just noun phrases. That's in blue here. And then step 4, say that you have the solutions. And here's an example of that sentence right there. Okay. So that's a little bit more about the opening paragraph. But again, like I said, if you'd like, you could just write this sentence here. You could say, thank you for your email concerning. Again, you do need to say the main problem. So you can use the subject line from your boss's email to help you with that, full stop. I've looked into the matter and come up with some measures to deal with the situation. You could say that. All right. And then down here, I even say, where can you find the problem, the big problem, the topic of the email that you need to put in the opening paragraph, which means this part right here or this part right here. We've just talked about that. I said, look at the subject line in the email from your boss to help you. All right, so that's the opening. So again, I'm just kind of reviewing what we talked about last week. In the closing, super easy. You just copy these 2 sentences. I hope you will find the above suggestions useful. Please let me know if you would like further information or action. And then just remember to sign off, put regards, and then whatever your name, excuse me, sorry, students, whatever your name is in that situation. So if we go back to that other practice paper we were just looking at right here, in this practice paper, you're John, so you would write regards, John. Okay, students, so that is a lot we've talked about today. There is another paper that I believe I sent to last night, and it's Sunshine Hotel. Let me find it here. Here we go. So here's Sunshine Hotel that I sent to you last night as well. I did everything the same way. You've got the first part of the document is the practice paper. This one's called Sunshine Hotel. It's a 4-star hotel. Remember, they tell you your name. They tell you the name of your business, Sunshine Hotel, and what it is. Then you remember you've got the boss from your email. You've got the email from your boss telling you the problem. Remember, this is the major problem. This is the big problem. Complaints from hotel guests. You can use that to help you write your opening paragraph. So let's remember complaints from hotel guests. And if we look at the opening paragraph, we see right here the complaints from hotel guests. All right, so after you read this, you know that there's problems, and they want you to know the problems and why, and they want you to look into the situation and come up with some measures. Measures is like the solution or the action to solve the problem. Then remember the main part of the test or practice paper. You're going to have the problems over here, solutions over here. Remember, you're going to have the problem and then more information about the problem, and then they'll give you the solution. Remember, the 2 solutions are special because we have the front line forward slash and question mark. So you have solution 1, solution 2. You need to give the advantage and disadvantage. And remember, this one is special because they don't give you a solution, so you have to add your own solution. And remember, this one you add the advantage and disadvantage, and for all the others you have to add the advantage, which is not on the test. All right, then I gave you the sample answer. Always off to the side here, I will tell you the requirements of the answer, like the things you need to include, and then over here I give you the example sentences, and then I highlight them so you know which is which part. So just like we talked about today, your paragraphs for each problem are going to almost be the same in one way, because you're going to always talk about the problem first, then talk about more information about the problem, talk about the solution, and then the advantage of the solution. Okay? Remember, the advantage is added, except for that special one where there's 2 solutions where you talk about the advantage and the disadvantage. Okay? All right, so there's that. And then the same way with this one. Remember, you've got your 2 sentences that you can use to close the paragraph, and then remember you've got regards and the person's name. This is a little bit different. This closing paragraph is a little bit different. I don't think I would use this one to help you with the closing paragraph for the assessment, because now they're talking about a hotel, and you don't know what the assessment is about. It might be about a hotel. It might be about something else. All right, then just like all the other ones, I gave you useful phrases you can use. So I gave you the phrases that you can use to help you start talking about the problem. I gave you useful phrases you can use to give more reason or details about the problem. I gave you phrases you can use to introduce the solution. Phrases you can use to introduce the advantage, which remember is your added idea. Phrases you can use to introduce the disadvantage. And then I did give you some vocabulary. And I might talk more about this next week, this one. But since we have 15 minutes left, I still want to go into Unit 8 then, because Unit 8 also has some important information. For the assessment, I would say Unit 8 and Unit 7 are very important. And then I believe Unit 12 has a practice that we can do. So let's look at Unit 8. Okay. So we talked about Unit 8 already. Remember, the name of the document is Unit 8. I believe it's SS. We've talked about page 4. This is the opening paragraph. It's so helpful. It's okay. The thing about Unit 8 that you can really use is if you go down here to this next page, well, we're going to talk a little bit about page 5. We can talk about this. But we'll also want to talk about page 6. Page 6 is really important because this is a lot of the phrases you can use to give the solution. Okay. It doesn't really say that. So to remember, you can call it a suggestion or a solution, because remember, there's a problem and then you need to give a suggestion or a solution to fix the problem. So that's what all these sentence patterns are for. Now, in all the sample answers I've given you, I've also given you phrases you can use. Some of those phrases are these phrases here, but we'll talk about those. So that's what I want to focus on. But before we talk about that, let's focus on page 5, again, of Unit 8 document. All right, here it says suggesting solutions to problems. There are different ways of suggesting solutions. If you feel certain, so you're 100% sure that a suggestion is the best or the only possible solution to problem, you can use a very strong tone because you're saying, I know this will work. If it's more tentative, if you're not really sure, you're like, oh, it's an okay solution, it's an okay suggestion, then you would use a milder tone, not something so strong. So how do you achieve the difference? How, if you feel really strongly about a solution or suggestion, you're like, yes, it's going to work. What words would you use? And maybe for another solution or suggestion, maybe you don't feel as strongly. You're like, oh, it's okay. What words would you use? Okay, so that's what this is all about on page 5 of Unit 8 document. Okay, so here we have, if it's a stronger tone, you feel really certain and strongly about your solution, you can use these words up here. And if you're not feeling so confident, then you would use these down here. Notice these are modals: must, should, ought, can, may, could, might, would. Also in the test, you can probably see the words can and will. You will see a lot of the word will, W-I-L-L, and the answers as well. All right, so that's what makes them stronger. If you know it's really important or really strong suggestion, you're going to use must. Should is pretty strong, but must is the strongest. And if you're kind of like, well, it'll work, it's good, then you can use can or may. And this is if you're like, it probably will work. It's could, might, or would. Now, students, I'm teaching you this in class because it is on Unit 8, page 5. But when you're writing your solution or suggestion, don't worry too much about if you're like, oh, should I use must? Should I use should? Honestly, I would say most of the sample answers provided to you by Ivy probably use can, may, could, or will. So don't worry too much about this. But just so you're aware of it, you'll kind of know. You'll know a little more. So number 1, to minimize risk, electrical technicians must wear protective clothing or have to wear protective clothing while working on energized circuits. 2, the company should apply warning labels to all electrical equipment or ought to apply warning labels to all electrical equipment. Next one, it may be a good idea for the company to upgrade the technician's emergency communication devices. And the last one here with these, one solution would be to offer more on-the-job training for technicians. So I hope you can kind of hear the difference between the different solutions when they use words like must, should, may, or would. Okay? All right, we've got about 11 more minutes. I don't know if you can hear all the construction work going on, but we've got 11 minutes, so let's see if I can do this. I'll let you hear it really quick. Construction work is getting quite loud. I've told them that I'm teaching classes, but that does not seem to bother them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how to give suggestions. Okay, so these are some ways. So this page is important when you study. Now, all the I think all the practice papers I give you will probably help you the most because you can see the phrases there, but this will also help you. So again, this is Unit 8, document, page 6. All right, so the first one is, there could be advantages in installing a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory. So you could start off with, there could be, so there is your subject, could be is your verb, and then you can finish your sentence, which would be the object or a clause here, okay? Students, wait 1 second. I'm going to see if I can go in another room because this is just really loud. Give me a minute here. All right, I don't know if that's going to help, but we'll see. All right, so let's just talk about this and then we can finish for the day. All right. So here we've talked about this first one. You can start off with the subject there, could be as your verb, and then you finish with the object or a clause. Now, this piece of information here is going to change for whatever information they give you on the test, so that just depends. Another one is we've got the best or obvious solution would be to install a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory. So you can start off with the best solution or the obvious solution would be to. Because you have to, you need a verb after it, and the verb cannot have ing, ed, or s because that's infinitive. I would be very careful about this, students, though. I don't really like this one, the best or obvious solution. And the reason why I don't like it is the obvious solution, if you say this to someone, oh, the obvious solution is to blah, 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 it's almost like you're talking to them like they're dumb, because you're almost like saying, oh, well, you should know this. This is the solution we should be doing. That's the problem I don't like about with obvious. And the other thing that I have a problem with is the best. So if you say the best solution, remember on the test, or the assessment, there is one area where you're going to have to talk about two solutions. So let me put that up here. There is a part where you're going to have to talk about two solutions. Let me give you an example. Okay, so like right here, you're going to have to talk about two solutions. If you say for one of them, if you say for solution 1 or solution 2, the best solution is to blah, 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 that doesn't make sense, because if this is the best solution, if providing training to bartenders is the best solution, then why are you talking about selling canned drinks? That doesn't make sense, because if this is the best solution, then this is the best solution, training bartenders. So that's why if you're going to use the phrase, the best solution is to, you should use it for this one, or this one. Don't use it for when there are two solutions, because then it just doesn't make sense. Okay, so be careful of that. All right, so let's go back to this lovely colorful table here. All right, next you could say, we could install, we can install, we should install, we must install, we have to install, we ought to install. All right, so you could use any of these words. Personally, again, for the test, for the assessment, I would probably use could, can, or should. Okay, I wouldn't use must, have to, or ought to. It's a little, I personally, in my opinion, it's a bit too strong. It's almost like you're telling your boss what to do. All right, and again, after could, can, or should, you would have a verb. Notice there is no ing or ed or s on the verb, again, because you've got could, can, or should in front of it. Okay, you could also write it. It is necessary to install. It may be necessary to install. Okay, so you could use one of these words. Again, your subject is it. Now, students, I don't know when my computer is about to die. I have to go get something to plug in my computer. I'll try to do this quickly, so if I fade out, I'm really sorry. It is your subject. Is, maybe, or necessary to is your verb. And again, there's no ing or d or s on your verb because you've got to, which is infinitive. A possible solution is your subject. You can use is to install or would be to install. That's your verb. Again, no ing, no ed on your verb because you've got to in front of it, which is infinitive. You can say, I would like to suggest installing, or I would like to suggest that we install. So here you've got a few choices. Number one, first I need to say that I is your subject, would like to suggest is your verb. Then after that, you can say installing with ing with your verb. So I would like to suggest installing a 3D bioprinter. I would like to suggest that we install. So if you use that, you don't need ing. You just have a little subject like we, and then the verb install. If you don't use that, then you can just say, I would like to just suggest installing ing on the verb. Okay, next, students, let me go. Wait a minute. Let me see. I have to move rooms again because now my laptop is about to die, and I want to talk to you these last few. Give me just a second. Let's hope this doesn't go out. Okay, we've got a few more. Okay, so we've talked about I would like to suggest installing. Next one, again, our subject starts the sentence off, so we've got it. It seems that, or it is clear that. Again, I kind of don't like the word is clear that for the same reason that I don't like obvious solution. Because again, if you say to someone, oh, it's clear that, it's almost like you're talking to them like they're stupid, like they're like, that you should know this kind of thing. And I don't think that's really the good way to talk to people, especially your boss. So I wouldn't use as clear. I would use seems. That's fine. So it seems that, and again, because you have the word that, you have a that clause that needs a subject and a verb. So the subject here is we. Then you have should. Now, it might be something different for the assessment, but you will need a subject and a verb after that. So we should install. So now you've got your verb. Should install is your whole verb, sorry. A 3D bioprinter in the laboratory. So just remember, you can say it seems that it'll probably be we, because it's usually, I would say 99% of the time in the test, it's going to be the company that is doing the action of the solution. So it probably will be we, but you never know. It might change a little bit. So it seems that we, and then you can either put a verb here or should plus a verb. If you have should in front of your verb, there should be no ing, no ed, no s in front after the verb. So it seems that we should install a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory. All right, next, this one is different, students. So you'll notice most of the time in all the other answers, notice we've got the word installing over here. We've got install, installing that we install, we should install. Here now, your solution comes at the beginning of the sentence. So your solution is the subject. Installing a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory may, might, would, could be an effective solution. All right, so you could do that. That means you would put the solution as your subject. You would need ing because this is a gerund like we talked about, and you might have to add some more. You probably will have to add more information. Then you're going to have may, might, would, could plus be, and then you can finish it an effective solution. You could say installing a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory is the most effective solution. So you could say that too. Just remember, so this one in purple is special because you are starting off with the solution as your subject, and because of that, you need ing on the verb here to make it a gerund. And then you would say may, might, could be an effective solution. That one's good. Again, this one, if you use this one, installing a 3D bioprinter in the laboratory is the most effective solution. That's okay to use it, but just remember, for one of this problems, you're going to have two solutions. So I'll go back to that other paper I was talking to you about. Remember this one right here, where there's two. So if you said training bartenders is the most effective solution, then why are you suggesting that we sell canned drinks? That doesn't make sense. So if you're going to use that phrase, suggest it, this is the most effective solution. Let me put it back up here. This one here. Training our bartenders is the most effective solution. Installing a 3D bioprinter is the most effective solution. It wouldn't make sense when there's the two solutions. You would have to use it on the other solutions, not the one where there are two. All right, so students, I do believe our holiday starts next Thursday on the 9th. So we won't be having class next week on the 9th because that's a holiday, but we've talked about Unit 8 now. We've gone a little bit over the opening paragraph, and I said there's other better ways. There's a few phrases in here, but look at the other papers I've given you. We've talked a little bit about when you make a suggestion, the different words will make a difference in how strong you feel about the suggestion. But I said don't worry about that too much. You're probably going to use can, should, could, and will, W-I-L-L, the most. And then, and that's even, yeah, I'll just leave it there. And then we talked about other ways to give the solution. These are sentence patterns you can use to give the solution, and that's on page 6 of Unit 8 document. And then at the beginning of this class, I talked about all those different phrases you can use for the different parts of the answer: the problem, more information about the problem, the solution, and the advantage and the disadvantage. So you've gotten lots of phrases and practice today. All right, so have a lovely day. Have a lovely holiday. I hope y'all are all safe and doing well and healthy. Take care, and I'll be sending you emails, and I guess I will be seeing you, let's see, I'll be seeing you We'll be having our next class the 16th of April. Please remember 8th of April is Moodle and Net Languages deadline. All right, so that's it, everybody. If you have any questions, please ask, but if not, have a great day. Bye-bye. All right, students, have a great day. If you have questions, please ask. Otherwise, see y'all later. Bye-bye.
Since there are no questions, I'll be closing the meeting. This means I will remove people from the meeting. Okay. All right. So thank you guys. See y'all later. Okay. All righty, guys. Bye-bye.